sailed across the ocean for like 3 months. No one knew anything about it. And then it showed up at Hankook Motorsports, North America in Austin, Texas, and sat in their warehouse. And then finally, now it's shipped here. Pop.
Oh, what is it?
I don't know. It's just interesting random stuff. They really just sent us trash. Finally here. This is the first thing we ordered, and it's finally here. I'm so psyched to see this thing.
As the DTM championship progressed through the late 80s into the early 90s, the competing manufacturers began to push the aerodynamic envelope. With limited power gains available, the competitive edge had to be found elsewhere, and improved aero was just the fix. Mercedes and BMW's Evo packages each debuted wild flares, wings, and bumpers on the 190e and M3 street variants in 500-unit runs just to meet the DTM rules. This resulted in a championship-deciding effect. The performance gained through aero development was paramount in the success of the Mercedes, while producing the signature DTM look that has become an integral part of any 190e build.
So we just took delivery of some pretty awesome race car parts. They took about 3 months to come across the ocean, but they're finally here, just in time. It's cool to see how wide the fenders actually are, because you see the kits and they're not that wide, and then you look at the race car, you're like, oh yeah, there's one fender. Front fender flares are absolutely massive. It's a nice arch, huh? This is my favorite angle right now. Honestly, this transition is just so cool. I can't wait to see what it looks like. Now, I honestly just wish we had the car here. I'd love to bolt this stuff up and just see what it looks like. But the cage and the exhaust system are getting finished up at the fab shop. We're gonna bring these guys down to Pennsylvania. We're gonna test fit them on the car. Cannot wait to see what it's gonna start to look like. We're gonna pluck the engine out. We're gonna bring the engine back here, set it up on a table, and we're gonna get it all refreshed with some nice FCP Euro parts, making sure that engine's gonna handle getting started up and running up to temperature for the first time. So yeah, it's all starting to come together. It's been a lot of waiting, a lot of fingers crossed, but we're excited, we're gonna do it.
While the team at FCP Euro headquarters had been stuck waiting for the Evo 2 body panels to arrive from Europe, the team at JPC Fabrication was busy getting a head start on the extensive to-do list. The 190e needed work done on its custom steering shaft, engine supports, and radiator support, as well as installation of its custom roll cage, all within a short time frame. Luckily, the team knocked most of that out in just a few weeks and had the car nearly complete by Nate's arrival with the new flares and fenders.
All right, so here we are, JPC. James and the team have worked a couple weeks on the car so far. You can see there's some tabs here, little bungs put in for the radiator just to make sure it's mounted. Same thing went on the radiator. And then coming over here, you'll see the steering column. You can see that bearing is actually fitted in. So there's actually a boss piece that's been welded in place there to mount that triangle bearing in place. You can see there's the exhaust system hanger, so there's a brace to mount the exhaust system at that point, right in the back. And you come up, you'll really see the lion's share of the work that's been done over the last couple of weeks. You can see that we have most of the cage installed, so it's passing through the rear firewall, it's all sealed up. We have the main hoop, we have diagonals, we have the little gussets, all the nice bars in the back, nice X. Have a dash bar, the steering wheel is mapped out and ready to be mounted to the crossbar. I mean, that seems about right there.
That's pretty good?
Yeah, that's good. Here.
Okay.
You want to attack it real quick, or you?
Now just mark it. Okay. That shouldn't change anything.
No, honestly, it's staying in place right now. I'll just let go. Some finish welding done on the front engine brace. Right here we have the turbo brace, which is made in the same spirit of this. So strut towers have been completely reinforced. This is going to make it really easy to get the W204 dampers. Basically that we're slated to use the car right in here. We're going to put little ears on here. This is all super strong, all tied into the cage. It's going to make this car super stiff, super easy to drive. Yeah, it's just going to be a nice, simple trick setup. It's just the way old touring cars should be. There's going to be some finish work done on this fuel cell mount right here. Make sure this fuel cell is all mounted in properly. Final things to be done here, we're going to put a crossbar for a harness bar, and then the door bars need to go in, the door X's, and a couple gussets, and the cage is all set. Car's going to be going off to the paint shop. Now, we also have the body kit over here. So this one needs a lot of trimming right here. You can see this overlap here. We're going to have to cut this whole little section out to make sure it fits the body panels here. So this is all gonna have to get cut out all the way up here and then folded over and pinch welded all the way around before the car goes to paint to make sure these panels fit properly. So we test fit the wing, obviously, what you can see going on here. We have the entire 3-inch exhaust system is complete. We're bringing that back to the shop with us, get it out of their hair.
Are you feeling confident about getting it done in time?
It's gonna be right to the line. I mean, everything is, you know, taking a teeny bit longer than we expected, which is, you know, it's obviously the quality is there, so we're not upset about that. Everything looks amazing, but it's just a matter of trying to hit our deadline for Circuit Legends.
After roughly fitting the new bodywork and assisting with some fabrication, Nate stripped the shell of its engine and brought it back to FCP Euro for Gridlife prep.
All right, it's about time we get this engine out of here. We're gonna go grab some tools, we're gonna get a chain, we'll pull this thing out, get it in the truck, and get on our way. Nope, the 10's missing.
At JPC, the team finished up their fabrication and sent the 190E off to its next destination, the paint shop.
We do more than just sell car parts at FCP Euro. Whether we're helping you wrench in your car over the weekend with our DIY content, whether we're putting really cool builds out on the road and out on the racetrack, or traveling around the country competing in professional motorsport, subscribe here to learn more.
Working fiberglass is a messy, time-consuming process that can frustrate even the most experienced. But a fellow BMW CCA racer's body shop in upstate New York was ready to take on the golden era's short deadline.
This kind of generation of car was the beginning of really considering aerodynamics as a big factor in racing. That's why we have these Evos where they were changing wing angles and changing roof heights and window angles and stuff like that to make sure the car could go as fast as it could down the straight line, and it also created some downforce. We saw adjustable wings make it out into the Evo 2 and 3 BMWs and the Sport Evo BMW. We saw the adjustable wing on the Evo 2 Mercedes, so there's definitely the beginning of the arms race of saloon car aerodynamics. All right, so here we are at the body shop. The car has been, I think, 2, maybe 3 days here. These guys are hard at work, really fitting this body kit. There's a lot of little idiosyncrasies that need to be kind of tackled and made right. The fiberglass didn't fit all that great, so there's a lot of fiberglass work going on, but these guys are super hard at work, dedicating a lot of time, a lot of extra effort to get this car done.
All the drama of a TV show that builds a car in 24 hours, that's exactly how we felt. My name is Kevin Gilardi. I own the Mako here in Fishkill, New York.
No fiberglass panel is ever truly perfect right out of the mold, and the Golden Era Project's body kit was no exception. Over several days, the body shop filled cracks and dips with filler just to sand them out and shape them into perfectly smooth panels. Other panels were trimmed to fit perfectly against the 190E's existing panels for a seamless factory look.
Now, some of the things they've done, they've completely smoothed out the sunroof. We've cut the rear arches out nearly like 40 millimeters for clearance. So one of the things on the Evo 2 cars is that Mercedes wanted to run the car lower, so they cut the arches out and put these really cool looking flares on it. And so the guys are hard at work doing that right now. And then just your typical fiberglass work, there's a lot of little nips and tucks and making sure everything fits right. That's really gonna come out at the end when we see the car painted and finally wrapped. But the hard work that these guys are putting in now is what's really gonna make it look awesome at the end.
After the intense fiberglass work, the team hit the chassis with primer, sanded it smooth, and laid on a bright white paint.
I owe it to my team. An extremely short deadline, not enough time. They knocked it out, we got it done, and I think it looks awesome.
So it is towards the end of the day Tuesday. We got a lot accomplished yesterday. The car is getting wrapped currently, which is super awesome to see some green coming in here, see the Scheffler colors and the Hanks colors on the car. We're super excited to show it off, and also it's really nice to have some green in the shop. It offsets the blue a little bit. We have a lot of other projects going on. Danny's been working on the interior, so we got the dash all dyed out here. The door panels are all dyed, ready to go on. I've been doing the seat stuff, so getting the steering column located, seat mounted, shifter in the car. We got Sam over here. He's been cleaning up the subframe, so you can see the subframes all being cleaned up, getting ready for paint. We have all the ground control arms. They're gonna have to get measured and bolted onto that. And then finally, we can get the subframe back in the car so we can actually move it. Right now, we're only moving the car around with a jack, which isn't super ideal. In addition to that, rotiform showed up, and we have the rotiform wheels for demo and display. So the display wheels are getting the tires mounted right now. We got to get them ready to go, spaced out, get all right to the edge of the fenders where we want them to be. And then once we have the suspension in the car, we can really dial in ride heights and all of that sort of stuff. So all that stuff's kind of up in the air, and right now we're just really trying to dial it down. And then the last thing here, we have the engine display. So that's going to be, it's all welded up and ready to go, but that needs to be painted. And then the engine needs to be cleaned up, getting all the oxidation off the aluminum, making it look really good. It's gonna be an awesome display. It's gonna be really fun to show everyone kind of how we took this front wheel drive engine, flipped it around, put it in this rear wheel drive chassis. But obviously we want that to look shiny and nice and clean for everyone over at Lime Rock and Circuit Legends. So stay tuned, about 36 hours left. It's crunch time, all hands on deck, and it's gonna be exciting.
It wasn't just the bodywork that made these cars so iconic, it was also the liveries they wore. Bright colors and distinct designs made for head-turning, unforgettable cars that commanded as much attention sitting still as they did sliding through chicanes. The artists at 8380 Design were tasked with creating an exterior scheme that harkened back to those early 90s looks, and they delivered just what the car needed and allowed the team from Rabbit Wraps to work their magic.
My name is Darius Strinka. I own Rabbit Wraps. We're a company from Massachusetts that specializes in motorsports design and vinyl wraps. Here we are at FCP Euro trying to get this beautiful car done. This is kind of a last minute deal. We have 2 days to finish this car, and it is, you know, quite a car to work on, and it's giving us some challenges. As you can see, we have lots of different lines in the car. It's not as simple as your modern day race car. Just to give an example, to wrap this car, you know, it's taking, to this stage, it's about, we're already at 16 hours. While, you know, you can see any GT4 cars, like FCP Euro's Mercedes cars, those will take about like 8 hours. So that's to give you a little comparison. So the process for making sure everything looks straight is, you know, we pick a body line, let's say a corner of the hood, and since it's printed graphic, so again, it's like one piece, the whole idea is, you know, to line this up. So we measure from this corner to this line, and same thing on that side. That way we know, you know, once the piece goes on, it's all gonna be nice and straight, so it's not gonna look crooked, which is kind of the difficulty of doing the printed stuff. More if you do graphic overlays on top, you kind of have a second chance and you have a lot of freedom to maneuver the smaller piece. With such a big piece, you know, you kind of have one shot, so measure twice, cut once kind of thing.
So it's 9:30 Wednesday night, wrap is almost done. So Darius is about to put the stickers on the car, so the actual decals, the numbers, and the Scheffler and Hengst and all the cool logos on the car. Just finished up the rear suspension. So rear suspension's in with brake rotors on. We did a quick wheel test fit, everything looks really good. So kind of getting antsy to put the car on the ground, excited about that. Did the front suspension, so we have coilovers installed, the new control arms on there, the E90 tie rods, all that sort of stuff. We actually put the proper AMG brakes on the car for the first time, so we have the calipers and the rotors, which look pretty awesome. Definitely starting to look like a real car, not just suspension, you know, scaffolded together to make it roll. Once we get that all done, we should be sitting on the ground pretty good. I think we need to put the bumpers back on. We need to put the headlights in, and I think we're about to roll off to Gridlife at that point. But yeah, it's been a busy day, but it's been a super. We got a lot of stuff done. Glass was installed today, all the suspension arms, a lot of stuff cleaned up and prepped. It's coming together. But next stop is sleep, and then a little more work, and then Gridlife.
By the time Gridlife Circuit Legends came around, the Golden Era project was wrapped in its livery and could roll on its own four wheels. Debuting the new build during the Motorsport Festival's first ever weekend in Connecticut's rolling hills was the perfect scenario, and the team worked hard to get it there. Sure, an incomplete drivetrain and missing wiring loom isn't exactly where the team wanted to be for a weekend filled with wild time attack machines, drift missiles, and wheel-to-wheel racers, but such is the way of building a custom race car. Luckily, partners and fans didn't mind as they viewed the project for the first time, surrounded by drivers battling it out on the challenging Lime Rock Park circuit.
First impression, amazing job. Our feedback has been outstanding, and we're really happy to be here with you guys to reveal this to everybody. Scheffler's been involved in the DTM race scene for many years. We've won a couple championships, and we're just really excited to be a part of this. This is one of the bigger projects revolving around DTM in the United States, but we are tied into all forms of DTM in Europe, all forms of motorsports, really. So. Yeah, and so this is a year first for bringing it back to the U.S. So the overall impression today has been extremely positive. A lot of questions about how the powertrain has been mated together, from the engine to the transmission. More than a couple vehicles components have been contributed to this build, and it's really just sparked the questions and allowed for some really good conversation and a lot of fun today.
Now that Circuit Legends is over, the Golden Era project is headed back to FCP Euro for completion. There was still significant work to be done between running the new wiring harness, installing the custom clutch assembly, and machining the front control arms, all in order to get the 190E fired up and driving for the first time. Follow along on the next episode of the Golden Era.
Ready, set, crank. You ready?
It's been a while since we last saw the Golden Era 190E, yet the work hasn't slowed down. Day by day, part by part, Nate and the team have chipped away at the extensive process of cherry-picking parts from the FCP Euro shelves to make them work as if it were the Mercedes engineers themselves putting it together. With a substantial amount of work still to do, it was all hands on deck to get the car finished and ready to drive. Arguably one of the most stressful tasks was fitting the new starter.
This engine and transmission, even though the bell housings bolt up, there is not a place for the starter to actually live. So what we're going to be doing is we're using a W204 C300 starter. What we need to do is this flange here, I think, will be about this flange right here. We might have to put a spacer or two on the back, and then on the bottom there's actually no flange, so we're going to have a full spacer. See that ring right there? That's what tells the engine management where the position of the engine. So this is a crank position sensor, this is the crank position ring, and obviously this comes through here and out this side. Starter's gonna be right there, so we gotta be really sensitive to what we're doing with this wire and this sensor. This is 100% critical for the engine to run properly, so we really need to make sure we keep it safe and don't damage it in the process. Definitely gonna make changing the crank position sensor a little more difficult. Extra step of removing the starter motor every time you need to do that. I believe it's something like this. So we know that hole, but obviously everything below that is going to need to be cut out. What I'm going to do here is take this front flange and I'm going to make a cardboard template of it so I can hold it over here and see exactly what it looks like. All right, just going to be close, but we should have enough room.
Nate had to precisely measure and cut into the engine block to position the starter perfectly to engage with the flywheel. Any mistake there meant the 190E would need an entirely new block.
How are you feeling? Nervous? Confident? Confidently nervous?
Yeah, confidently nervous. Or nervously confident. I think that's the better one. We did everything we can. We have this plate here. That's going to hold the drill in place. So, I think we've done everything we can do to be safe, and all the precautions have been taken. So let's slowly kind of bore in here, see what happens, and we'll go from there. There you go. There's the beginning of a hole for a starter. Something like that. You might have to do a little more notching down here in the bottom, but you can see we are starting to make progress. Nice. It's the beginning.
Ensuring the starter was mocked up and aligned correctly was a huge step, but there was more to do before it could be mounted for the final time. The M133 still needed some refreshing, so Schaeffler sent over technical specialist Jason Haney, who brought some Schaeffler, ENA, and Luke parts that were needed to help finish the car. He even lent a hand and provided some insight into the history about Schaeffler's engineering and manufacturing.
So FAG, or Schaeffler bearings, was started in the late 1880s by Frederick Fisher.
So that's really about basically when Mercedes was building the first car.
That was a little bit before Daimler actually got his first car on the road.
Okay.
So most likely, I don't have any proof of it, probably FAG bearings in the wheels in that three-wheeler. So FAG is the oldest of our brands, which is now branded Schaeffler. Schaeffler brothers started ENA in the 50s. And basically they made bearings and components for engines. That's what they got into, even though they didn't have a technical background. And so that's where this company has grown. The acquisition of Luke was started in the 60s as a diaphragm spring clutch manufacturer. They wanted to get away from the lever style. They moved on there and they were acquired in the 90s. So now everything's basically under the brand Schaeffler. Every car in the world that rolls off an assembly line has something from Schaeffler in it. Every brand new car does.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
Nate and Jason made quick work of refreshing the M133's ancillary engine accessories. Properly functioning parts are critical to any engine, and installing the fresh plugs, coils, and accessory belt ensured the AMG engine was set up for a successful first attempt at its new life. If you recall, the M274's oil pan was exactly what the team needed, but not without some additional modifications still needing to be done. With the help of local fabricator and FCP Euro customer John Volk, a new oil pickup was fashioned to pull oil from the sump's deepest area. As a race car, managing G-forces is also a concern, so a custom baffle plate was fitted for safety. After that, fabrication was complete and the oil pan was bolted onto the engine for the final time.
So we're all set here. We've sealed it up, bolted it down, gone through, kind of sorted out some of the oiling system for the turbo, made sure all this stuff was ready to be buttoned up. Up front we have a E46 AC belt on here. It actually works perfectly for our shortened length. So we should be good, and now we're gonna flip the engine over. We're gonna pick it up off of this stand, and we're gonna start putting the flywheel and clutch and transmission on it.
The drivetrain was in need of the most attention. The custom clutch and flywheel were next for a final install.
It's rev time. Let's go mate this thing up and hopefully get these splines lined up. Can I grab someone to back this engine up? This is a pain. That's closer than it's ever been there. Is it moving at all?
Hey!
I love this thing.
Get some wood.
Finally, it was time to lubricate the engine. Taking a page from our IMSA GT4 team, Liqui-Moly's Lyclof 5W40 was the oil of choice for the engine, while the turbocharger received some Proline turbo additive to keep all the bearings lubricated during initial startup.
Next thing we'll do is we'll pull the spark plugs out. We'll crank the engine over a couple times by hand to make sure we prime the oil pump, all that sort of stuff. Once we do that, we will then put some electricity to the starter motor, make sure that the gear comes out, engages the flywheel, spins the flywheel properly, and then disengages. So I'm looking through the hole where the PCV port is on the side of the block, which is actually kind of right in the part where the cylinder head will drain down to the block, or down to the oil pan. And I can actually see it's all wet with oil, which shows that the engine is cycling oil up to the top, to the camshaft, and then it's dripping back down to the sump. It's just this line is pretty long, so we're kind of waiting for oil pressure to push all the way through that line, so then it can go through the turbo and we can make sure we're cycling oil through all the critical bits of the engine. Just wait till this thing finally actually fires up. That's gonna be like full on Back to the Future.
The drivetrain may have been ready for installation, but there was still buttoning up to do elsewhere. Fuel lines had to be run up to the new fuel pressure regulator, and there was still some chassis wiring to take care of. Luckily, FCP Euro's wiring specialist Karim drove down from Canada just for the occasion.
Hey guys, welcome back. Up? Thank you very much.
So from here on, we can start laying the wires down, securing them, doing the sheathing on them, putting the power distribution panel, getting the electricity all the way through the engine and the front lights, and we can make a race car for real this time.
So I have to put a battery isolator in, so we're gonna go do that.
The battery isolator, which will basically isolate the battery from the rest of the electrical circuit. So if we need to shut something down in emergency, we can just hit the button and kill everything properly. It basically kills off the system without damaging any parts of the electronic in the car. You drilled and tapped already?
Yep, it's already drilled and tapped.
Not bad for a noob.
Since Karim was last in the shop, significant progress had been made on the mechanical side of the project, which meant a lot of it was now ready for wiring. Putting his previous plan into action, he laid the wiring out for the fueling system, PDM, and the rest of the components on the chassis side to get a sense of where it all needed to go.
So basically, what we've used for this car, instead of using multiple switches and relays, we're using a power distribution panel, which basically is a combination of the panel switches and the relays built into the same unit, as you can see here. It's fairly thin for all the functions that it does. It has 16 different channels individual, or you can be combining them for higher amperage, up to 30 amps per channel, which is pretty cool. And we outfit every buttons with their functions, and you can use basically whichever function was assigned to it with its own sticker, so that everything keeps in order.
While figuring out which wires needed to go where, templates were drawn up for the dashboard faceplate and the PDM's mount. Nate then brought them down to Sports Car Restoration in Plainville, Connecticut.
We got the CarTech PDM just so you guys can use it for measuring. Dash panel. This will fold up over the transmission tunnel, kind of guard some of the shifter stuff. And then this will sit on top and mount the PDM.
The steady hands there took those templates and bent them into shape from aluminum before spraying them in a durable undercoating finish. Yet, in between all of the major work, it was the arrival of some smaller components that got Nate really excited.
We got the seats. It's really light. I feel like I'm trying on clothes here. It's totally boring up front, and then when you look at the back, that's when it gets cool. As Ben says, it's the mullet of seats. Business up front, party out back. Nothing but the best of the 80s right here. Carbon Kevlar. No logos here, per Golden Era regulations. We wanted to keep it old school and simple.
With the entire to-do list checked off, the engine and gearbox were fitted into the chassis for the final time.
We just got the wiring harness back from the assembly line. Took a bit of time. These guys are good.
Assembling most of the car without the aggressive thrum of the M133 had been a challenge, but at last, the pivotal piece that had held up the build for months had arrived. It was finally time to install the engine harness and fire up the heart of the Golden Era project.
Apparently these things were absolutely impossible to get, which was basically the interface between both harnesses on the bulkhead. And they've made a proper document, so we have all the pinouts and everything. First up is going to be inserting the harness, connecting everything together in the different positions, assembling everything, connecting wire by wire, or should I say connector by connector now. Powering up this thing, checking the connections to every single sensor, checking that we can talk to the coils, to the injectors, test firing them, cranking it over to read the position sensors, and then hopefully firing it today and doing donuts tomorrow morning.
This is where the nuanced mastery of engine wiring and planning comes together. The satisfying click of fresh connectors was everything the team had waited for. Their hard work was finally going to pay off with a bespoke, well-organized, and labeled wiring harness. Not all was perfect, though. The starter's location made its wiring connection tight at best, so the team had to get creative.
So we had to gut the connector, which was preventing the starter to be put in place, and we basically potted the wires and terminals directly inside basically a motorsport job, motorsport hack job. It has to be done.
How many clips I have of you doing this from the last 2 days?
Shut up. Simulating something moving next to the sensor. Okay, try it now. Yeah. I see signals.
Voltage increasing?
Yeah, it's decreasing actually. It's going down.
I've always said the crank position sensor, when you go in on this, it comes in on a weird 45-degree angle, and in, you know, like if you have a sheet metal rear main seal plate, there's a little cut for it, and the crank position sensor has to go in the cut and like grab it. And it's really like tricky to get in there. As if this is where it's supposed to be, it was like sitting like, it was just off the side. So it wasn't getting a signal. So.
Never the tuner's fault, never. All right, we're online. Start turning. Yes, I have sensors.
Nate, you probably should have put that in yourself.
That's blamed on me somehow.
After the starter was taken care of, Karim began his wiring system checks, plugging into the ECU and manually checking each sensor, pump, and meter. It is a time-consuming process, but essential for such a completely custom project. One wire out of place could throw everything off and send the team down a diagnostic rabbit hole.
See, if I move it.
Well, that one has the lock broken.
Yeah.
So the pins are loose. This is how you fix
Mercedes problems.
a pin. Ready?
Your pick.
And
32 pounds.
pinch.
You did it.
I'm looking for all the sensors to be able to position the engine properly for the ECU so that it finds its own logic level and this starts. That's basically what I'm trying to do. So we're looking at the crank sensor, the cam sensors, intake and exhaust, all the throttle position sensors, the throttle pedal sensors, etc., 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 to make it make sense, basically. And then we're going to try to start the engine.
I'm just trying to make sure it's not leaking anything.
I'm still at 3.9 volts, which should theoretically be the pull-up resistor inside the system. So it's like something's not closing the buckle because I should be hovering at 0 volts when it's plugged in. So what we're going to try to do, we're going to remove the DTM plug and we're going to try to jump some wires. We're going to try to find first which is the 8 volt or the 5 volt and try to jump the other wires.
You ready?
Yeah. Stop. Great success!
So what, we're good now?
Yeah, we're good now. We're gonna start the car. We're gonna do the fuel systems check, make sure the pumps run on, nothing leaks, and then we plug everything back in and start the car.
Feel good vibrations. Fuel, plenty of it. Regulated fuel.
Regulated? Put your thumb on it, see if we get the foil. I'm kidding, don't do that. Ready, boys?
Okay.
You're gonna hit the start button and I'm gonna tell you, Nate.
Okay.
Just wanna make sure we got RPM. Go ahead.
With the minor wiring hiccups out of the way, everything was seemingly lined up as needed. Unfortunately, the throttle body didn't agree. Without it properly actuating, one of the parameters needed to fire up the engine was nowhere to be found.
We're viewing the throttle body. Why? Because we're struggling with calibration on it. There's something wrong with the sensor, I think. Right now we're looking, there's a little bit of a wiring discrepancy between the number 4 injector, the throttle body, and the ECU. We're not sure if somewhere in there a pin or a wire got crossed up, possibly. But we've been going through it and trying to figure out what's going on. Just trying to diagnose it so we can have a throttle body that doesn't freak itself out.
I have a variation, but it's literally 0.1, 0.5, 0.05, 0.04 volts.
Let me try it one last time. Hold on. You ready?
Yeah.
Opening.
No difference. Fuck all.
Yep. I got you.
A considerably productive day buttoning up nearly every system in the car was abruptly ended by a faulty throttle body. That meant just one final hurdle to overcome after ordering some overnight parts from Germany.
So through rewiring this and diagnosing it, we basically determined that the throttle body is no good, and that is the weak link. But unfortunately, we don't have a throttle body to throw at it right now. So we know what to do, we know where we're at, and we'll fix it. So last time we were here, we needed a new throttle body. We installed a new throttle body. Now Krim and Corey are working through this. So we're dialing in fuel pressure, and then we're gonna try to crank this thing over and get this thing to fire up. Yeah, I can definitely hear him. Stop. Okay, that is Z. Okay, that is uppercase M. So we found one mispinned connector already. So basically the connector was supposed to go to pin Y, it went to pin X. And if there's more of those, then what we're doing is we're sending inputs through here that are not communicating with the things they need to communicate with. So we double checked some of the wiring. We figured out where the signal wires for the control wires for the high pressure fuel pump control were going. And then Krim's made some changes on the software side to update that to make sure it is communicating the way it needs to and that we have control over the high pressure fuel pump, which seems to be the issue because we're firing injectors, but we're not getting a lot of fuel into the engine. So basically the injectors are opening, but there's not enough pressure behind them for the fuel to squirt into the cylinders.
Oh, we got sputters.
Okay, go ahead.
Ready? Damn it.
Give it a bit of throttle.
Yeah.
Got a good feeling about this one as I get excited when Krim gets excited.
Krim, you excited?
Yes, I am excited.
Is Corey excited?
I am
I
excited.
want to hear this thing run.
Corey's tired.
Oh my god, everybody's there. No pressure, guys, no pressure.
Yeah.
Here's one extra voice.
Alright, try that.
Okay.
So we just fired the engine up, ran it for about 30 seconds, which is about as long as we want to without any coolant in the car. We're going to put the expansion tank on, we're going to get all of the cooling pipes plumbed in, and then we're going to tidy up some of this wiring a little bit, and we're going to get over to the dyno and tune this engine and see what kind of power it can put out. It's a little bit of an overrun. Slightly. Now this thing's gonna be a beast.
With the car finally running, and only a short list of things left to do, will the 190E survive its first date with the dyno, or will the team be left with new problems to solve? Follow along on the next episode of The Golden Era.